Okay, so with everything put together nicely, let's go ahead and finish up the weathering, guys. So get excited here. We're going to basically be finishing everything up. All the hard stuff is done. We're going to be doing all of the basics now. And there's going to be some dry brushing methods. For example, on the trucks. I went ahead and painted the trucks blue, as you guys know, as you can see. And I went ahead and primed them up with some dark burnt umber acrylic, which is, let me see if I can get the label and shot here. This stuff right here. Burnt umber from Anita's Acrylics. Absolutely wonderful product. I've been using straight up earth brown and burnt umber for these wheels. Now the trucks on this car are pretty dirty, and they're a light, kind of a dark rusty grime tone. So I'm going to be mixing up a special color right on my piece of paper, and I'm just going to be dry brushing these for the most part with a very, very light coating. I want to keep most of the blue intact here, so I'm not trying to completely cover them, but just give some color detail. If you guys want to see some more detail, or hear more detail about how I do my trucks and stuff like that, you can watch some other videos where I go into a little bit more detail. But at this point in time, you guys have seen enough me doing this kind of work, so you guys mostly get the idea here. But that's why I'm basically brushing over these light techniques here. But I'm going to go ahead and put a little grime on the tank and everything else here where appropriate. Again, very, very light stuff here. Just some very basic dry brushing, nothing crazy here. Just where I need it, hitting it up on all the corners. Just simple dry brushing techniques here. Now the last truck, same thing. Take a little bit more paint off my brush. Again, you can really go light with these applications if you want. I mean, you can take quite a bit of this paint off, and it stretches quite a bit. In a case like this, like I said, we're only getting a little color detail here, so we're not saturating this area. Just a little bit. There we go. So light dry brushing on these. I'm not going to do too much to the steps of this car. The steps on the real car are relatively clean, so I'm not going to do anything to those. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is paint the axles. And again, I'm going to mix up a little bit of my paint tone here, and I'm just going to carefully flip the car over like this. Zoom in here, and you just basically go over the axles like this as carefully as I can. Put a finger on the other wheel, that way we can stabilize the truck here so it's not flopping around, and we'll just paint that wheel. Same thing with this wheel. Do the exact same thing. Get some of this underbody detail up as well very carefully from the other side. Remember, always hit these kind of details up at all these angles. Of course, we're being careful of our separately applied details not to damage anything. Just being very careful. Just highlighting the most visible details here. So we'll go ahead and tie up the ends now. Just using the same acrylic mix here. I'm just lightly mixing the colors together, mostly black here. And this is going to be for the kick-up spray. You notice how I kind of swirl my brush around, but I'm not stabbing the bristles into the paper here. No, no, no. That'll screw up your bristles. I'm just lightly going across and just getting the paint on there and then taking most of it off, and you can see the point on this is nice and sharp like this. Okay, so once we go over to the model here, if I can get this tightened down, we'll zoom in on the bottom here, and I'm going to start doing the kick up on the ends. So on the prototype, it kind of starts at the bottom here, and then it works its way up on these plates like this. So I'm just going to replicate that here, and this is where a fine brush like this really comes in handy to get in these small precise areas. And this is really the only part of this fresh yellow that I'm actually going to be weathering. Everything else, like the interior, the yellow interior here, is going to be pretty clean. Alright, so I'm going to be doing some kick-up spray on the ends here to go ahead and finish off my dry brushing effects. I'm doing this just like I would on a tank car or a hopper or anything like that. I just use a metal straight edge, a stiff bristle camel hair brush cut down to basically the stub of the brush here where the bristles are just sticking out. I load up my paint onto the bristles, and then I just take my metal straight edge as a guide and then just carefully splatter the paint on like that. Very, very simple. And as you can see, you get an effective bit of spray like this. So that's a really cool effect you can do to model that kick-up spray, but that's basically the effect in a nutshell. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and model the damage to the back panel here. There's this little red square. At some point in time after the decal was applied, it started chipping off, and I'm going to replicate the damaged area with a little bit of white paint applied with a fine tip brush just at the very top of the piece, doing it based on the prototype photos here. Just right at the top like that. Pretty simple. Okay, so nothing absolutely insanely different about doing the wheels on this car. It's just like doing any other freight car or anything like that. I'm just going to be using some chalks to get in the wheels, to give them the nice dusty, dirty appearance that the real ones have. This is just the first stage. I'll go in and add some white and a little bit of black to these as well. The real wheels on this car have a very interesting color. They're not as bright a rusty tone as regular train wheels get generally, and I think this is because of the lack of service. You got to keep in mind this car is a local shoving platform, so it doesn't get out on the main and travel, you know, state to state very much like regular rolling stock. So it's got a very dark, grimy kind of a pattern on the wheels, so it's a really interesting color. And I'm going to go ahead and add some of this powder just very lightly to the wheels, just kind of to give these a dust effect. And this will help kind of enhance some of these little areas, just to make it look a little bit more like fresh rust. And I'm just building this up just a little bit at a time. Once I get the majority of it on, we'll just go ahead and kind of brush it and even it out a little bit. Just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep working down the side of the car here. I'll work on this little piece here for the brake rigging. Add a little highlight and color here. And on the tank as well. Not a crazy amount here, but just in the certain highlighted areas where you'll get a lot of kick up and stuff like that, and a lot of streaking. I'm just going to carefully, very carefully go over all my brake piping as well. Sorry about that. I'm hitting up this tank here. Okay, so working around the end here, I'm going to go ahead and start working on this coupler box and the coupler itself. There's a lot of bright rust on this particular piece, so I'm going to be going in with a little bit of work with a micro brush, and I'm going to be going in and applying this rust right into the coupler. Micro brushes are really handy for this kind of detail work because you can get in right into those spots and work it all in. So I'm basically going to coat this entire coupler with the rust to go ahead and start, and I'm doing this all the way around. Now I can go in and carefully add just a little bit of this bright rust color to the coupler box here. Like I said, this has a very bright rusty tone to it, so I'm trying to replicate that here with the bright powder. Okay, we'll go ahead and add the darker rust colored chalk that I have here. I use this on every one of my projects. It's a wonderful color to use. And I'm going to go ahead and load up my bristles here. And I'm going to hit up the kick-up spray on the end here with this powder to kind of add that dusty grime, basically that dusty rust that you see on a lot of this kick-up spray a lot of the time. Remember, we've done all the other effects. We've done the actual base painting, and then we've done the splatter, but this is the third effect I do for my kick-up to it. It really enhanced the effect. Go ahead and switch my brush. I was using a finer, sharper tip brush for that, but now I can go in with my scruffy number 2 Citadel brush here to go ahead and finish off the coupler. just by topping that bright rust tone down, just with a little bit of that chalk. Carefully hit up on the coupler bar there as well, and then just very gently in that corner there, just to get that covered. Perfect. And then what I'm going to also do on both sides of the car as well, I'm going to add just a little bit of chalk to the outer edge of these steps, which do get pretty dusty from the kick up and road grime. Common area. Just very gently, right at the base of the step really. That's where I want that particularly. There we go. And now I can go ahead and finish up with a little bit of white powder. I'm using AIM Products white, chalky white, just to go ahead and finish this off, make it look a little bit dustier. Okay, next stage of the project, I'm going to put a little bit of mud splatter on the car body here, and what I'm going to be doing is spraying it on the underbody, like not the car body, the trucks, stuff like that. You see a lot of mud splatter on cars like this, and I've mixed a little bit of a color, like basically I took some yellow, a little bit of charcoal, and some white acrylic, and I took my stiff bristle brush and my metal straight edge, and I'm just going to come in here and just put a little bit of mud splatter on these wheels, on the underbody a little bit, just to kind of enhance some of these parts like this. And it's a neat little detail you can add to really enhance some stuff. I think it looks really cool this way. Okay, lastly, I'm going to take some white powder from AIM Products to dust the trucks just a little bit, just to kind of enhance some of the details. This is just a very, very light effect. I'm not going too crazy. And then we'll just repeat the process on this side as well. But this is the reason I love these powders though, because they really make some of these details look so much more realistic. Like if you do like a layered effect with these materials, it really shows better in contrast than just say using one material or just relying on paint or something like that. This actually adds like a textured effect, so it looks very, very realistic. I really like it. Okay, final step here, I'm going to add the safety striping to the car. As you can see, it's an interesting pattern and it varies between sides, but I'm just going to replicate this with my Western Safety reflective tape, which I've cut into strips down here, and I'm just going to apply this to the model to go ahead and finish things off. And these are carefully scaled down and cut to the strips, and just like I said, I cut these out with an X-Acto and a straight edge, so these are scale size. They look really, really nice, and the way they have them positioned, they go right on the very end of the car like this, right at the bottom of that sill.